Welcome to Something to Wrestle with.
Something to wrestle with.
Bruce Prichard. Well, you know.
That's not a rib.
No, yeah, but me.
There's no box of gimmicks.
Rumor and innuendo.
I don't deal in rumor and innuendo. Was he there? I was there. I don't give a shit.
Welcome to Something to Wrestle with.
Something to wrestle
Something
with.
to wrestle with.
Something to wrestle with.
Dig it.
Bruce Prichard.
It's Conrad, the mortgage guy, and you're listening to Something to Wrestle with Bruce Prichard. Bruce, what's going on, man? How are you?
I was just admiring how nice my hair looked in that picture with Dusty, like nice, long, golden, flowing locks. Those are the days, baby.
Well, these are the days where we are excited to talk about the Royal Rumble. We are home stretching it to this year's Royal Rumble. Last week, we talked about 1991. Today, we're talking about 1996. Can you believe that this was 30 years ago, Bruce?
No,
It's crazy.
it's a long time.
It is a
I
long
can't believe
time.
I've been alive for 30 years.
Well, I can believe that. I mean, you've got kids that are 20 something.
Well, that's on you.
Nope. I'm pull out Jones.
No, I mean, you could be my kid.
Wow, isn't that a scary thought?
Yeah, exactly. That got all that got a lot of frowns at that fucking the Hall of Fame thingy that I put you in when I talked about how I could be your daddy. Some of those old timers' wives and stuff were not real happy with me when I'm
Really?
Yeah, when I just said, well, hell, I could have been in Huntsville, just kind of
Oh,
sliding
yeah.
on through there. I want to know where the hell Deborah was on the same day that you were consummated and all that stuff. And Deborah got all red. Larry Thompson laughed. He thought that was funny.
Yeah,
But
Larry
he was
laughed.
only one. Our table was only one that was laughing. We may have been the only ones that were drinking, but we were at least we were laughing.
We had fun. I'll say that.
We had
We had
fun, yeah. But there were a few, man. I got some nasty
Stop.
stares and just kind of, ooh, okay.
Oh well.
Have a
Let's
sense of humor, people. Come on.
agree.
Don't take this life too seriously. You're not going to get out of it alive.
Big facts. Big facts.
Just spitting facts right now.
Oh, okay.
Spitting.
So- Let's try to get into the mentality of late 1995. So, as folks are listening to this, more than 30 years ago, the WWF now finds itself combating WCW in the Monday Night War era. They've just started Nitro a few months prior. The WWF is coming off, respectfully, not their best financial years, and they're
No.
looking for a hit. And the Observer would say that they're contacting a lot of different folks. You may remember that this is around the same time, a few months prior to this, is when Big Van Vader had his situation at center stage with Paul Orndorff, and he
Got
found
his
himself.
ass whooped in flip flops. He wasn't in flip flops. The guy whooping his ass was kicking his ass with flip flops.
Isn't that, it's got to be one of the more famous fight stories in the history of wrestling, don't you think? How quickly did you guys in the WWF hear that story?
Oh, I think that one went pretty quick. That kind of just flew through the dressing rooms because, look, Leon was not a popular guy in the dressing room. And for anybody that worked with him, he would bully them and he would take liberties and things of that nature. So it wasn't like, oh, hey, poor Leon got beat up, or there was nobody making excuses. The story was, hey, Orndorff kicked his ass wearing flip-flops. Just, and like was kicking him with his feet in flip-flops and stuff. So that story went through because it was kind of the feeling of the big bully getting his comeuppance.
And that story traveled so quickly, sort of pre-internet. Now I know some smart ass out there is going to say, "Oh, there was internet in '96." I'm not arguing that there wasn't, but I'm just saying we weren't all walking around with the internet in our pocket like we are now. So back then, the WWF is looking for, hey, what surprises, what new wrinkles can we introduce into the fold? And allegedly, the WWF, according to Dave Meltzer, had contacted Dan Severn, Jake Roberts, Ultimate Warrior, Big Van Vader, Rick Martel, and the only name that had been mentioned on television is the Ultimate Warrior. And Vince McMahon has been negotiating, according to Dave Meltzer, with the Warrior and Vader about making some appearances. Was there ever a universe where Warrior's return was going to be at the Rumble and not WrestleMania 12?
Look, the Warrior conversations, they kind of always seem to be ongoing. It was feelers put out there, see if he'd respond, and he would ask for too much, and then they would go away for a while, and then they would spark back up. And what if we did this? What if we did that? But those were, by this time, they were getting a little warmer. So by this time, I think that there was actual thought of, oh God, he may be coming back. And there, there was that.
Oh God, he may be coming back. Meltzer would write, the situation
Yeah,
with
oh
Warrior.
God, he may be coming back. No one wanted him back.
No one, except for Vince.
Except Vince did. Vince wanted him back.
Meltzer wrote this in The Observer. The situation with Warrior is surprising since he's been mentioned on the syndicated Superstar show twice about a potential return to the WWF, but has yet to be mentioned on cable. Several WWF wrestlers believe Warrior is in for not only the Rumble, but to return as a regular. One person who's in a position to know better than most of the wrestlers claimed that that wasn't the case, and nobody is in a position that I believe they would know 100%. And they've told us nothing one way or another. McMahon has a hazy answer when asked on an internet chat, saying, in order for the Ultimate Warrior to return to the WWF, the moon and the stars and the sun and the planet Pluto will all have to be perfectly aligned in some sort of celestial magnificence. But who knows?
Yes.
Anything can happen in the World Wrestling Federation. So he's teasing it kind of publicly.
Yeah.
And I've always wondered, what do you think Vince is? Because whenever you and I talk about the Warrior transition from Hogan to Warrior, we often talk about how there were falling houses and Vince was underwhelmed with the results. It wasn't just overwhelmingly positive. So I guess my follow-up is, why does it feel like, for whatever reason, Vince was kind of enamored with the Ultimate Warrior here? Like if he wasn't this magic shot and boost for business and he was disappointing, I understand on the other channel now, Savage is there, Hogan is there. They're both in WCW. So is Flair, but he's not really one of Vince's guys. But the Ultimate Warrior, did he feel like, okay, if I can't have Hogan, I can't have Savage, let me at least lock up the Warrior? Or why does he think he needs a Warrior at this point?
I think that's part of it, but also there was always a connection with Vince and Warrior. They got along when they got along. Business wise and dollars, man, money will always come in between. And I think that, Vince has a habit's not the right word, but Vince just chooses to view the good in people. And if he looks at something and look, Warrior is a great example. Because I first met Jim Hellwig when he was 3 months in the business in Mid-South. And from the very first interaction with him, he was a first-class asshole. He was not a good person. He was difficult to work with, thought he knew it all. And he was just a real jerk. Then he ran out when Bill Watts cracked him in the head with a baseball bat, and he literally ran away and left the territory in the middle of the night. So I didn't have good experience with him. When he was calling in the summer of '87 to come in for WWE at the time, and I was asked, do you ever work with him? I said, yes, didn't have good experience. And Vince said, well, sometimes you have to look at the surroundings and the environment in which someone is in. And does the environment contribute to their demeanor and how they are? So was the atmosphere, was the environment one that could have made Jim a jerk? And I said, well, yeah, Bill could be difficult. Bill wasn't the most pleasant guy in the business to work with, but Bill was Bill and Bill was the boss. So gave Jim Hellwig the benefit of the doubt. But then I think that once Jim came in, he was on his best behavior when he first came in. And then once he got over, and he did get over, I think it was his theme music that got him over. And his entrance and the enthusiasm, and just, say what you will about Jim Hellwig. And I did not like the human being. Okay. The character of the Ultimate Warrior, man, had charisma, and he just like oozed charisma. And the guy had intensity and was frenetic and exciting. So it was, hard to deny that. No one can deny that. No one can deny the fact that this guy could not command an audience, and that this guy couldn't get a reaction going out and doing what he did. And so to that, kudos, man. I give him credit for that. And Vince just honed in on the positives of what he saw. And that was that. But then, they had their falling outs, and they had their Warrior getting fired and whatever it was, 91, 92. And now it was an opportunity for him to come back. And this was something that I think, Vince also is someone that, if it's good for business, he'll entertain anything if he feels it's good for business. So having Warrior come back, he felt at the time this could boost business, and this could be somebody, again, that the audience was familiar with, that they saw as a WWE guy, that they were like, all right, man, this is going to be good for business. And yeah, he was really pushing hard, trying to sell us on it.
Warrior seemingly got a lot of concessions in his 1996 contract. It's been made public from all the lawsuits after this. I don't think Vince gave that. Is that the first time you remember Vince granting a contract like that?
Well, I would probably guess that, Hogan had concessions in his, but that was Hulk. I think Hulk was the only one. So when you go back and look at it, probably Hulk and Warrior had good deals. But Warrior, wanted everything in writing, and Warrior wanted everything to protect him, and I think at that point, it kind of also gave Vince the pause to look at, yeah, he's protecting him. We have to protect us. So putting it in writing and wording it very carefully. But to answer the question, yes. And this was also during the time that we were looking at the downside guaranteed contracts, because WCW had been doing the guaranteed contracts, and that was something that people could point to. Oh, hey, yeah, I go to WCW. I know what I'm going to make every week. I don't have to work all the time. And I know exactly what my budget is. Every week I know that check is going to come. With us, you got paid on the gates, and if the gates were good, you did good. If they weren't, you didn't. So it was a new philosophy, and we were trying to look at how can we guarantee something but still have a built-in incentive for them to want to work harder and do more to get the gates up, to push merchandising, to do everything that comes along with the job and the gig. So all those things were going on. So also during this time, we're talking to obviously Vader, Johnny B. Bad, and it was those guys, not Warrior necessarily, but certainly Vader and Johnny B. Bad, they were used to guaranteed deals. They were used to, okay, what am I going to make? And I want that, on a weekly. So we could do that, and we were just trying to figure out different ways. Warrior wanted a lot more, and Warrior wanted, certain guarantees and what have you. And yeah, Vince conceded to less dates and what have you. The ultimate blow up was over the comic book that Warrior had, that we over delivered in the very first, in the first run, but then he got just absolutely insanely crazy, more crazy than he had been.
All right, so all of our longtime listeners by this point know that the official dog of Something to Wrestle is my girl Ginger. I don't care what Bruce says about Rowdy or Bean. Ginger is the face that runs the place. I've loved Ginger since I first laid eyes on her. She's been my best friend, and I just thought that my best friend liked to lick her paws, and occasionally my best friend likes to itch or scratch. And I just thought that every now and again my best friend got ear infections. It turns out these are not normal dog behaviors. They're actually signs of allergies. You see, it turns out that allergies in dogs flare up when bad bacteria takes over the gut, because 90% of our dog's immune system lives in their gut. So just like humans, dogs need probiotics or good bacteria to strengthen their gut health and calm an overactive immune system. That's why my wife and I started using Better Wild Allergy Relief Chews for all of our dogs. This is a soft chew that's really a supplement designed to support your pet's allergy defense system by strengthening their digestion. And check this out. Better Wild is the first and only chew with the Ancestral Advantage Wolf probiotics derived from your dog's mighty ancestor, the wolf. That's going to help restore a healthy balance of good bacteria in the gut. Better Wild allergy supplement chews actually include 4 different ingredients. Of course, you've got that Ancestral Advantage, but it's also got L-Sakii. Now, I had to look that up, but it turns out it's derived from kimchi, and it's been clinically proven to reduce itchiness and redness in just 2 months with daily use. How about that? The cholesterol is there to help boost the immune function and fight off that inflammation. Even salmon oil in there to help support healthy skin and fur. My dog's Ginger, Baby, and now Lil Daddy. Yes, my wife named a dog Lil Daddy. They like it, and they're feeling better than ever. I can notice a difference in their behaviors. I don't see them licking and scratching as often. Better Wild is committing to helping your dog with science-backed, veterinarian-approved solutions that you can feel great about it. My dogs tried it. They loved it. You and your dogs will too. Right now, Better Wild is offering our listeners up to 40% off your order at betterwild.com/wrestle. That's betterwild.com/wrestle for up to 40% off your order. betterwild.com/wrestle. Not too long ago, Mark Mero listed his contract when he came over to the WWF. It was March of '96 when he worked that out. And a lot of people have believed that he was the first wrestler to receive a guaranteed contract from the WWF. But I think, in fact,
He was one of the first, yeah.
the Ultimate Warrior would have predated him, because I think his contract was dated February 18th. So technically, Warrior may have had the first one, and Mark Mero was the following month. Does that sound right to you?
The time frame is right, but I to say who got the first one and who signed the first one, I really don't remember, because you do have to throw Vader into that as well.
Okay. So
And
that's something I hadn't thought about.
so, because look, I was doing talent relations at the time, and I was the first one to do the downside guarantees. So I was working with Vince on a budget. Now, here's, the crazy thing is that the budget for 1996 was little over $9 million. I want to say it was like 9.4, $9.6 million in that range. That was
That's
for
for
the
talent.
entire roster.
Okay.
Okay. And how we arrived at that number was we took the last several years and looked at the whole roster, the whole budget, and what had been paid out. And that is where, we came up with that number. And that was given to me by Doug Sages, who was the chief finance guy. And I had to divvy that up. And in divvying that up, okay, you've got Shawn Michaels, you've got Bret Hart, you've got Undertaker, guys that were top guys that had been there for a while, and then you kind of got everybody else on there, and then Warrior and Johnny B. Bad, and God, there are three. We just said them, didn't we? Vader. But what I didn't know was that Vince had already agreed to the money for Vader and Johnny B. Bad. So I've got, because I remember, thinking of Mark Marrow, and I had him down in the 150 range, okay, for a downside guarantee. Vader, I want to say we were looking at like 250. And again, these were downsides. So what isn't what they were going to make. This is the least amount you're going to make.
Right.
So I'm trying to make a budget work that if all they made was the least amount, then we get to our $9 million and we're not over budget. But if they go over it, they're going over it because we earned that. We made that. And they were sharing. So it's just like, profit share. So I didn't know about those. Then, you know what? Warrior was the last one to be done. Because I remember his kicked the fuck out of the budget. So it was not, it wasn't pretty for me having to manage it and just go, what the hell? And then you have Shawn, who we're looking at, okay, he's gonna be a top guy. You got Bret, you got Taker, and those three guys needed to be taken care of. They're the ones that had been through it all and had never left and all that good stuff. So it was a mess.
Let's talk a little bit about Jake Roberts. He's 40 years old here, and he's going to be making his return to the Royal Rumble. This will be his first time in the WWF since he left following WrestleMania 8. I know you weren't at WrestleMania 8, but we know Jake went down to WCW. Bill Watts had just taken over. Bill did not honor the contract that had previously been negotiated, and Jake didn't last very long in WCW. Wound up going to treatment, found the Lord, and he retired a year prior to this. I guess he found him.
Okay, cool.
And as the story goes, here's what Meltzer said. He retired from wrestling last year to go into religion and vowed he would never return. So we do know that he does actually work into a return. And the story that Jake has said for years and years is he hoped and believed and was led to believe by Vince that the Pat Patterson job would be his. When Pat steps aside, then, hey, Jake, you're going to have an opportunity here. And when that doesn't come to fruition, that's when he jumps to WCW. That was back in 92. Here we are in 96. Do you remember how Jake got back in the fold? Is he reaching out to Vince? Is Vince reaching out to him thinking, hey, let's get this nostalgia pop with a big return at Royal Rumble? How does that happen? Do you recall?
I want to say we reached out to Jake for the appearance at the Royal Rumble as a surprise and a nice pop and what have you. Then once Jake came in, and Jake appeared to be doing great, man, and said he was not doing any more drugs, wasn't drinking, wasn't doing any of those things, and gave, look, man, he gave that appearance when he came in, and in talking to him, really seemed clear-headed, and we needed, help from creative standpoint, and Jake always has, I believe, probably still does have a great mind for the business, amazing psychologist, and had he had the body of work to support that.
Right.
And, when Jake came in, it was like, hey, what about Jake? Could we use Jake to help us with writing TV, with booking and what have you? And that's kind of how it happened. But it started out with the appearance at Royal Rumble. Let's see what we've got, and then go from there.
Do you remember, was anyone optimistic about Jake as a creative force behind the scenes, or was it always going to be a wait and see because of prior experience?
Well, sure. I was optimistic about Jake. Wanted help, and I've always thought that Jake had a great mind for the business. So, but at the time, that was like a we'll see what happens,
I got you.
and then go from there. It wasn't like I got to bring Jake in and do this and see if he works out here to bring into creative. It was let's bring him in here, and then once he got there, it was like okay, hey man, he seems pretty good. Could we possibly parlay this into something behind the scenes?
Let's talk about Vader. Meltzer would say at the time, the Vader name is most intriguing with the WWF short on heels, and he is a proven pay-per-view draw. The two potentially could fit like a glove. However, Vader is used to big money, has the avenue of getting big money in Japan, and is coming off a serious injury and hasn't wrestled a schedule as grueling as the Titan schedule in years. We know that Vader does debut at the Rumble, complete with a lot of hype on TV. What did it take to get him away from his planned return to New Japan? Do you remember how all of that came to be? Is Vader reaching out and sending feelers? Is there back channeling? Does Vince just call him directly? What do you recall?
I want to say a little bit of both, but I'm not sure the myth of Vader having a lot of opportunities after the WCW incident was necessarily true. And by that, I mean that the Japanese office, I believe it was New Japan, that was doing business with WCW was kind
That's
of
right.
a little bit like, oh boy, you know, we not sure we want him anymore. And Leon, again, it was that kind of that bully mentality that he would use to get what he wanted. And I don't know that I think he did. I think that Japan was the right market for Leon,
Yeah.
and it was he obviously was over there and did a great job. But the I think that backstage incident took a lot out of him. You know, you go back to the Bulldogs and Dynamite Kid when Dynamite got his clock cleaned by Jacques Rougeau. Um, that the Dynamite Kid the day before was not the same Dynamite Kid after that fight. And I think that the same thing when you look at everything, I think that same history and that same thing repeated itself here with Leon because there wasn't clamoring for Leon. I think that you know he maybe could have gone to All Japan, maybe he could have done that, but the aura of Vader in front of the camera, behind the camera, everything else just kind of mm, got chipped away big time there with that Orndorff altercation.
Let's talk a little bit about Dan Severn because he's in a similar situation. Now, this is a long time ago. Let's remind everybody we're talking 30 years ago. The UFC was still in its infancy. It's owned by a company called SEG, not Dana White and the Fertitas. This is pre all of that. And we know these days WWE and UFC share the same banner, TKO. That was not the case back in late 95 when Vince was reaching out to Dan Severn. I guess Vince makes some sort of promise like, hey, we're not going to do anything to make you look bad. But supposedly there was a clause in UFC contracts that wouldn't allow them to appear on anyone else's pay-per-view. Now, of course, they're probably thinking if some other mixed martial arts sort of outfit were to pop up and be new direct competition to the UFC. But I also know that if you're branding yourself as being quote unquote real, then maybe you don't want one of your performers appearing on sports entertainment. So my question is, do you remember any discussion about whether or not you could have a UFC contracted performer appear at the Royal Rumble? And was there any heartburn on the SEG side about that?
No, what was the name of the guy there? Meyerowitz.
That's right.
Okay. I had a decent relationship with him. And when I say decent, he took my calls and we talked over the years and things, and he was always open to things. So he liked us, and I was a man, I was a big fan of the UFC. I loved the beginning of it. I didn't think it would last. I really didn't. And I think that Dana coming in and instituting rules, because that was Vince's big thing. Vince didn't like it, and because he felt, where do you go from here? And if there are no rules, then what is the intrigue? And he was a big one on not really understanding it, or just some of the Hoist Gracie fights were, they were boring. They weren't good. Would I want to tangle with Hoist Gracie? Never in a million years. I got, nothing but respect for the Gracie family. And when you talk about legit badasses in the world, they're at the top of the list. The entire family. you know, the grandfather would please forget about it. But when you're looking at trying to market something and exciting, and you want people to get involved, I think that some of those fights hurt them in the beginning. So Vince didn't like it. I loved it. Shane loved it. For me, I thought that I always loved the wrestlers at UFC, because I felt a great wrestler will beat a great martial artist. I know wrestling's a martial art. Any day of the week. And I thought that I loved Dan Severn. I thought that Dan was great in the octagon, in that world. Ken Shamrock also in that world, but Kenny had lost. Severn had a much better record. So I'm looking at that. Mickey Mark. Oh, Dan Severn's much better. Dan Severn has beaten Ken Shamrock, and my God, he's got. And so I liked Severn, and Shamrock had the professional wrestling background, so to speak, and I think that there was a little negativity on that in that world of the shoot fighter, but Ken Shamrock was a legit fucking badass, and Ken Shamrock had charisma, and Kenny had an attitude, and Kenny had a personality, man, that and Dan Severn, if you were to go back into the 50s and 60s and want to have your babyface world champion, you would have wanted Dan Severn, because Dan could beat anybody on the planet, and he was well dressed, well spoken, and just a legit badass. Dan could also be viewed as boring. So I wanted Dan bad. Corny was a fan of Dan Severn as well. And Vince was like, damn, Ken Shamrock's the guy you want. But we kind of went back and forth and all this stuff. But the Meyerowitz conversations, he was open to it. He was actually good with it, and just I don't want you to beat him with one of your phony wrestlers, and I was just, no, I mean, look, we're going to take care of him, and we'll bill him as UFC champion and stuff. So there was an allure there, and I'm partial at that time to Dan, because I had met Dan. I'd never met Kenny, and then once I met Ken, and I was like, well, he's got it. So Dan was just not as flamboyant in this world as maybe needed to be. Badass. I want to fuck with Dan Severn, trust me. But he was also a stand-up class guy, like ultimate professional. You never had to worry about Dan Severn screwing up. You never had to worry about Dan Severn showing up late or embarrassing your company in any way, man. Danny dressed to the nines and was there, was the definition of a professional.
You know, for a lot of us guys, we're all just focused on the day. We've got a task list. We got to get it done. We're trying to put out fires and handle whatever the issues are at hand. But every now and again, we have one of those moments. And I had one on Christmas Eve. My cousin was going to get engaged that night. I knew that, but she didn't know that. And as I looked around, as we're all opening our gifts and I have all of my extended family in, I was just overcome with gratitude. You know, as guys, sometimes we're just thinking about our problems at work, or we're thinking about that game, or we're just thinking about issues. But when I really got to just look around and be in the moment on Christmas Eve, I was reminded of what's really important. I'm talking about our families. And a lot of times, if you're the head of the household like me, you think about that financially. I want you to start the new year with clarity and security and lock your life insurance in today. Policy Genius is an online insurance marketplace that allows you to compare quotes from some of America's top insurers side by side for free. Their licensed team will help you get what you need fast so you can get on with your life. Easily find what you need. Coverage amounts, prices, terms, no guesswork, just clarity. Policy Genius helps you find the most affordable policy that meets your needs. They answer questions, handle paperwork, and advocate for you throughout the process. Policy Genius has thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot from customers who found the best policy fit for their needs. And with Policy Genius, real users have gotten 20-year, $2 million policies for just $53 a month. Ease the weight of protecting a wonderful life. Head on over to policygenius.com/wrestle to compare life insurance quotes from the top companies and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/wrestle. Let's talk about another talent from this era. As we're winding down 95, Shane Douglas is winding down as well. He comes into the company in late August 95, very quickly finds himself in the Intercontinental title picture. And we know he's going to ultimately drop that title towards the end of November to Razor Ramon. He has 2 more matches, one TV taping in Maryland, a Superstars, and then a house show in Philadelphia, November 24th, 95. And that's it. He's hurt. He's got a back injury. And apparently Vince and JR are trying to convince Shane to work a match at the pay-per-view that's coming up. This is, of course, against Ahmed Johnson, the December 1996 In Your House Seasons beatings from Hershey, Pennsylvania. And Shane Douglas refuses to work. He says he's got a back injury. He can't do it. There's no backup plan. So as the story goes, someone, maybe JR, I'm not sure, I'll ask you, says, what about Buddy Landell? So Buddy Landell, fresh off of a match in August down in Smoky Mountain with Shawn Michaels for Jim Cornette's outfit, he gets the opportunity cold to be on a pay-per-view against Ahmed Johnson. Kind of a cool deal for him. Ahmed gets the squash win, 42 seconds. But he does get a title shot the very next day in Delaware against Bret Hart. And that same day, he works a Monday Night Raw taping and gets a win over Bob Holly. And the very next day, he does a Superstars taping and picks up a win over Matt Hardy. But after that show in Bethlehem, where he beats a very young Matt Hardy, and it looks like he's on his way and he's finally got an opportunity to make some money in the WWF, damn it, he slips on some ice going through a revolving door, tears his ankle up. He's going to need surgery. He's going to be out for 8 weeks. Once again, success has slipped through the fingers of Buddy Landell. What do you remember about this story? That's the version we've always heard as fans. What really happened with Shane Douglas out, Buddy Landell in? Hey, watch out for that ice. Darn it.
Corny is the one that suggested Buddy Landell. And I haven't worked with Buddy before. I thought, yeah, why not? Buddy's not going to embarrass you in the ring, and thought, all right, we can do this. Buddy didn't come in bad shape. He actually looked decent and everything, and clear-headed, and showed up in his nice suit and tie and what have you. But I have no idea what happened with the ice. But you know, back in the day, there was a guy by the name of Nature Boy Buddy Rogers, and he's not the only one, but Buddy is a good example in this. That because they were professional wrestler, they knew how to take bumps.
Mhm.
Take a bump, and that would look like it would kill an ordinary man, but to them, it's just another bump. And in his later years, Buddy would go to establishments like a grocery store and slip and fall. And oh, I'm an old man. Oh my God, I broke my neck, or I broke my neck, or oh my God. Go to the hospital, get an x-ray. Yeah, man, his back is fucked. Oh my God. If you just pay, look, I don't want to go through this. Just pay me $10,000 cash. I'll go away. They did that quite a bit. Then they came up with these things in the grocery stores called cameras. And they had cameras up and down the aisles. And as legend has it, Buddy might have gone down and tipped over a jar of pickles or whatever the hell it is, and then slipped, went down, looked around, made sure nobody was looking, and went down, and oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. So what happened? I was walking down the aisle. I didn't see this spill here. I slipped and fell. Oh my God. Let's take a look at the videotape.
Oh no.
And when they went and they viewed the security surveillance, they saw the whole setup. And that put an end to Buddy's slip and falls. But Buddy Rogers, the original Nature Boy. So there was I think there was speculation, and there were people that doubted the seriousness of Buddy Landell's injury. And again, I don't know, man. But he allegedly got settlement from the hotel.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
And and was done. Again, I wasn't there. I don't know. I just that this part of this is all wrestling scuttlebutt and lore. So yeah, I really don't know, but I know that after that, when he started telling the story, I go, oh God, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And it was a horrible and it was horrible weather there, man. And it was frozen tundra and all that good shit.
I mean, the ice here, the fall for Buddy Landell effectively ends his career. I mean, I know he came back in and did occasional shots for WCW or the WWE, but never with a contract. They were always one-offs. He would work independents, but there were a lot of people who maybe, he was one of their favorites to keep an eye on. I remember when I used to go to the NWA Legends Fan Fest in Charlotte. I met a lot of people who felt like, man, Buddy Landell was the guy who got away, man. What could have been? And I'll admit that sort of predated my fandom. So I didn't really have that experience, but I know a lot of people who were really tuned in when he was on the rise, who felt like, man, he could have been something special. Did you see that in Buddy in an alternate timeline? Could he have had a more fruitful, more successful WWF career, do you think?
I think Buddy is one of those guys that is allergic to success.
Mm.
Buddy Landell's first main event in his career was in Houston, Texas, against Jose Lothario. And that's where, that's right, I said it. That's right. Hey, this taco eating guy over here, yeah, that's right, I said it. That was Buddy Landell. Buddy had his first main event in Houston. And It was the lowest drawing card of the year. And it wasn't just a bad house or the shits, it was the drizzling shits. And a lot of people saw that, okay, once he kind of got right there, he could always fumble it. And it was kind of hard to fumble in Houston with Jose Lothario, because Jose was one of those guys, man. You get in a personal issue with him, and you could make some money. Not so with Buddy. And Jose didn't really want to work with him after that. I was like, yeah, no, this is not going to work. So I think Buddy Buddy went to WCW or whatever it was at the time, the NWA, and had an opportunity to work a program with Flair, and he fumbled that deal. Had a short little run, and then whatever Buddy does, Buddy does, and he wasn't able to continue that, and then he just worked Tennessee and worked smaller places from then on. But Buddy, and the sad thing is that Buddy, I think, was liked by everybody. Had a hell of a personality. Buddy I think he ended up doing this for a while, but Buddy was the epitome of a used car salesman. Man, he could talk your ass off. He could sell you, snow in, by God, Alaska. And people liked him, man. It was like, hey, yeah, Buddy Landau. Nah, he's fucking hilarious, man. I like Buddy. And got along with all the boys and was a great guy. But just, he would get close, and then it just didn't work out. And there was usually only one common denominator in those things, when you looked at it with Buddy. And it is a shame, because I thought that he was a hell of a talent. And I thought that if you could take that personality that he had backstage and turn it up to 10 on camera, he a lot of times was playing heel, but he was a great heel. He really was. But sometimes he went to the play mode instead of, man, be real with this. And
Right.
it was a shame, because I do think that it was opportunity lost for Buddy.
Let's talk a little bit about Dory Funk. It's written in the Observer. The deal with Dory
all
Funk.
goddamn night about Dory Funk.
Well, I don't want to do it all night. But it was announced in early January that he's going to be a part of the Royal Rumble. And Meltzer would explain that the WWF is trying to open up a relationship with All Japan, similar to the way that WCW has a deal with New Japan. Maybe Vince was thinking Dory could be the liaison with All Japan. I know they're also going to feature Amori in the Rumble. So talk to me about how the All Japan thing comes to be. Is this you reaching out to Dory, or how does Dory become positioned as almost like a liaison for All Japan here?
Wow, I want to say this is well, yeah, it was. I think it was JJ who did.
Okay.
And JJ was another one that was always fascinated with the Japan relationships and what have you. And was always looking, and that was part of his job with talent relations and shit. So, well, actually, no, fuck, it wouldn't have been JJ. Would have had to have been me. It fucking wasn't. But goddamn, man, when you say that, I don't think that it was necessarily for the All Japan shit. I'm sure part of it was. I'm sure for Dory it was. But goddamn, boy, you got me there. I was thinking this was a few years before with JJ, but it wouldn't have been. So
we mentioned that TV taping in Bethlehem. That show is also going to be the last appearance of Santa Claus. John Rickner, who we know more affectionately and commonly as Balls Mahoney, He picks up a win over Scott Taylor. You know him as Scotty Too Hottie. And that happens on December 19th, 1995. Meltzer would say that Santa Claus has already been fired because he was told the gimmick wasn't working. And he worked the NWA show on December 29th, throwing out presents to fans like chocolate with cigarette butts in it, Barbies with a penis put on the Barbie, and other tacky and tasteless things like that. What happened here? Santa Claus. This has to be one of the worst ideas of 1995, don't you think?
I'd probably be number one.
Yeah.
Yeah. God damn, what would be the anti-Santa Claus? And it was going to be just the big X Claus, and it was Santa Claus, and who would bring in Santa Claus, and then the dude, good Lord, the amount of discussion time spent on Santa Claus, I'll never get that time back. But it was, I think he could be Santa Bunny, instead of the Easter Bunny. He could be, it just was, he was Boo Bradley for Cornette. And Boo would be perfect for this. And poor old Boo. He worked the first night, and then the next night went up to Jim Myers, who was doing where you'd get your draw and your dance, and if you needed cash, you go see Jim and all stuff. And basically went up and showed his ass and demanded money from Jim, and I want this, I want that, and was not the best side of him. And then, by God, it was all over for him. I was like, I don't want an asshole like that. And besides, gimmick sucked. Not gonna do that again. Like, well, yeah. I think everybody universally thought the gimmick sucked. So, but
and he didn't make a good impression. He didn't come off like a team player.
No, he was horrible.
Yeah.
And I want to say he was probably drunk.
Oh, that doesn't help.
It was like, go ahead and go home, man. Go home now.
Yeah.
I want to say we may have paid him in full and said, just go away, go home.
And you hate to hear it for Balls Mahoney, Buddy Landell, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. That's the end of the road for both of them.
Yeah. That was a hell of a snowstorm too. Hell of a snowstorm. Drove home in it. Drove home following the snow plows.
Oh, wow.
Vince driving. And then going around the snow plows, which I did not know this until this moment. It is illegal.
I was going to say
on the Jersey Turnpike and that kind of stuff. It is illegal to pass a snowplow on whatever the highway. All this shit. Now, the gentleman that was kind enough to pull us over and inform us of this let us go, and we stayed behind the snowplow for the most part. But that was a slow ass ride home. Brutal.
Let's talk a little bit about Razor Ramon. This is on the build, of course, to Razor and Goldust at the Royal Rumble. And we know once upon a time that was going to be part of the story, but maybe it would pay off at WrestleMania 12. But as we've learned on this program through the years, things change, pal. Dave would even write, Ramon is trying to get the program switched to working with Hunter Hearst Helmsley. I mean, we know in the grand scheme of things, 30 years later, through modern eyes, I guess Scott Hall was perfectly within his rights to turn down a sexual angle if he was uncomfortable with it, but also would challenge people who maybe weren't sold on the Goldust angle being a good idea or the Goldust gimmick being a good idea. Well, that proved to not be true either. The Goldust character is still iconic and something that people remember forever and ever. Was there a way, do you think Vince was just digging his heels in and Razor was digging his heels in? Was it the undercurrent of Razor's contract coming due and him not wanting to go out like this with this storyline? Was there more to it, do you think?
Well, only Razor knew he was going out. So at this point,
Right.
it probably a lot of all of the above, but it was, Razor dug in, which made Vince dig in even more. And the program, I think the program would have been amazing.
Yes.
Two great workers, controversial character, man, with Razor Ramon, machismo, and all this shit. It was, I do think it would have been great. I think that it was unfortunately never really given the opportunity to be great. And Razor didn't want to do it and just made it difficult to do. And I would say in that situation, Razor came out on the wrong end of the stick, because I think Dustin went on to have a fabulous career as Goldust.
Let's talk a little bit about Bret Hart and Davey Boy Smith. They had a phenomenal match at In Your House, and they actually get to show the match on Raw on January 8th. And we just talked about this last week here on the program when we talked about 1991, that angle with Sergeant Slaughter and the Ultimate Warrior and the scepter attack from the Macho King, that was really the first time we saw video instead of stills after a pay-per-view. And now here we are just a couple of weeks after a pay-per-view showing a whole doggone match on Monday Night Raw.
Mhm.
Now, granted, only about 90,000 people or so bought the pay-per-view. So 1.6 million or so are going to watch this episode of Raw. So a whole lot more people get to see it. But how do you do that, Bruce, without pissing off the cable companies here in January of 96?
It was 2 weeks later?
Yeah, it was a couple weeks after.
Okay. Well, that was the window.
Oh,
Because,
okay.
because also even when you go back to the other, like WrestleMania and what have you, 6 weeks was the window there before it went to videotape.
I
So
see.
we had DVDs, kids. You had
No,
little
this is
circles.
VHS. This is VHS in 96.
96, we were still in VHS.
Yeah, man. You weren't doing DVDs until
Okay,
like
kids, they
98,
were goddamn
99.
tapes.
Yes.
When did we go to DVDs?
I think 98, 99, 2000, somewhere in there.
Oh well, I thought it was much earlier than that because I remember. I'll never forget the Bret Hart coming in with CDs and DVDs and just thinking that because the way you were sold CDs. Okay, I'll go back to CDs then. By God,
Takes up less space.
huh?
Takes up less space.
Indestructible.
Hmm.
Indestructible. You cannot, like, you couldn't scratch him. You couldn't do anything. And
That's
Brett's sitting there going, he goes, yeah, man. He goes, I got these damn things. He goes, and they're supposed to be indestructible. My kids take them out and they're like throwing them. They're doing all this shit. He goes, they scratch. It just was one of those. It was just one of the funniest conversations I had with Brett because he was like, well, I thought all this stuff and everything. And I'm looking at him like, I really don't know, dude. I assume that was kind of how they were presented to us. That you couldn't scratch them, you couldn't harm them, you couldn't damage them in any way. They will last a lifetime, by God. They're indestructible till your kids get a hold of them and bend them in half. And then, by God, guess what? They're gonna skip. Sometimes they won't even play, and shit like that. So it was. I don't know why I went off on that tangent, but yes, that was why, because you had a window to get your tapes out, and later on, especially within your houses, man, it was, hey, we'll push it. So yeah, there was a window, and I want to say by that time it was 2 weeks because the turnaround just got a lot faster. Because we took over the distribution. It stopped being Coliseum and those guys. We took over distribution for it so that there wasn't the added production time of, Coliseum editing it and putting their stuff in to make it unique to Coliseum Video. We were like, why can't we just take the event, put it on a tape or a CD later on and sell it? And then if we did do wraparounds, we did that in our studio, and it was just much faster. So get it out to them a lot quicker. By God, give them a taste of it. It's like, here, come on, kid, just try it, just one time. And yeah, all right, I got to have more of that in your house. I want in your house to be in my house where I can just sniff it all the time.
Oh, listen to you. Hey, let me ask you this question about Brett and Bulldog, because that was the match that you guys are showing. It went down at the Hershey, Pennsylvania, in your house, December 17th, 1995. And they got a plenty of time on it, like 21 minutes. And a lot of people hold it in really high regard. I think Meltzer himself gave it 4.5 stars. And I know that the
Too
lore
bad it
of
wasn't in the
Summer,
Tokyo Dome.
oh, it would have been 7 stars.
Oh yeah.
But we know for sure that the SummerSlam 92 main event is held in such high regard, especially over in Europe. Folks just absolutely love it. But I have seen some fanfare recently saying they feel like this in your house match between Bulldog and Brett was actually better than the SummerSlam 92. Did you have a preference between those?
You know, okay, you're talking about two of the greatest workers, you know, in Brett and Davey, who had unbelievable chemistry. I don't think that they ever had a bad match. So the levels of good and or great matches between Davey Boy and Brett is, again, it's different variations of what you prefer. And maybe the Wembley match, um, based on Brett's book and different interviews that he's done about the condition that Davey Boy was in London, is either going to skew your opinion one way or the other. Where it's like, oh, he was fucked up. That was a horrible match because he was messed up. Or, oh my God, that was one of the most unbelievable matches. How could he do that if he was fucked up?
Right.
So again, that goes back to opinions. So I don't recall seeing a bad Brett and Davey match against
But you
each other.
didn't but you didn't have a favorite either.
I really didn't. No.
I got you. Well, as we get closer to the Royal Rumble, there's lots of chatter about all these new guys who may or may not be coming in. We know Vader, he's already being talked about on television, so he's going to be getting a big push.
Smell-o-vision.
There you go.
We
We've
had
also,
that then. Boy, howdy.
it is announced that Jake Roberts is going to be in. Allegedly, it's supposed to be just a one-off, and he's got some religious bookings he wants to keep. Maybe he'll work occasionally, but it doesn't look like he's married to the WWF. Doug Gilbert is mentioned as coming in as a one-off for a USWA representation. We haven't spent much time talking about Doug Gilbert. How does Doug find his way into the Royal Rumble?
I favored a Lawler, but also I love Doug Gilbert. I loved Eddie Gilbert and had the same affection for Doug. I got to work with Doug in Global, and he's just I think he's one of those guys that I don't know, I have a soft spot for him. I think he was a good worker, but I also just found him to be a good person. I enjoyed my time with him, and it's an opportunity to use him, give a little love to the USWA, and give a little love to Doug.
Why don't you think Doug ever got a real shot in the WWF? I know we worked some joint shows with the USWA, WWF, but this Royal Rumble show was really the only WWF branded program that he was ever on. But if you loved Eddie and you loved Doug and you thought a lot of him and had a soft spot for him, could you not advocate to get him a gig, or was he not Vince's cup of tea, or what do you think?
I don't think it was Vince's cup of tea, but I think his reputation preceded him, and I think there was a lot of apprehension because of that reputation. Like I never experienced a bad Doug Gilbert, so it was hard for me to speak to that. I could only speak to the good. I could only speak to the fun that we had and how he treated me. And he always treated me top notch. And I just again, I'm partial. I love them. They're Gilbert boys. Love their dad, Tommy. He was a great guy. And Eddie, I was close to Eddie, and just I wouldn't have gotten to the WWE if it weren't for Eddie Gilbert. And so I always grateful, but also, again, just a relationship that I had with Doug, and I always liked him.
Another one-off that we see, we mentioned earlier, coming in from Japan, Omori. Why is Omori chosen,
I
and
ain't
why
got
is
a clue. I
it's
seriously
weird, isn't
don't
it?
have a clue
I
at
mean, one
all.
and done for him here. It's
Well,
weird.
yeah. I couldn't tell you other than try to get representation from as many outside entities that we could to come in and be like, ooh, wow. And for international purposes, maybe that was the reason to get him on. And yeah, I couldn't tell you anything beyond that.
Also want to mention Kama Mustafa. Kama is going to be coming in here. I guess he had his last WWF appearance in early December, but he is going to come back and make an appearance at the Royal Rumble, and then he's going to go off into the sunset for a bit. It's not until 1997 before we see him return, and we know eventually he'll become the Godfather, and boy, he has a whole new lease on life. Talk to me about getting him back in just for the Royal Rumble. Was he just easy to do business with, and he's sort of
Always.
transitioning to outside interests outside of wrestling?
Yeah. Oh my God. Bear was always easy to do business with. I another guy that I hold in high regard. And yeah, he's one of the most easygoing, but by God, don't you cross him. um, but easygoing guy, and always a delight to do business with. And he's also one of those people that you want to have around because always has a smile on his face, always in a good mood. And I think that he brings people up and he brings good vibes with him.
We would start to see in January promos for Mick Foley. Now, of course, he's going to be coming in as Mankind. He doesn't actually start on TV until the night after WrestleMania. But you are getting some opportunities to just, sort of feel him out and figure out how this is going to fit. Were you optimistic that Cactus Jack, as this new version of this character, Mankind, would actually have legs in the WWF? Because it does feel like, man, you're trying a lot of new stuff, Gold Dust,
Yeah.
Mankind, and then you're bringing in outside forces like Vader, bringing back legacy names like Warrior and Jake. This feels like a company really open to trying a lot of new things. Is that fair to say?
Yes. Yeah, it was in a transitional period that we were trying new things and just experimenting and looking at different characters and bringing some new blood in. But I think everybody was optimistic as far as the Mankind character.
All right, folks, listen up. Last week, President Trump announced that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac were going to buy more than $200 billion worth of mortgage bonds. And then I actually saw the next morning on CNBC, the head of the FHFA, well, he says it's actually $225 billion. Now, what does this mean? It means that there's going to be more demand. Now, what does that mean for you? Means cheaper rates. As I'm recording right now, rates are lower than they've been in more than 3 years. And it's free to find out how much money you can save right now. But if you've been on the fence waiting for better rates, this could be the second chance you've been looking for, especially if you bought a house or if you've got an interest rate in the 5s. It's not a matter of if we can save you money, but a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at savewithconrad.com. And I'm especially talking to you if you've ran up credit card debt. I know there's been a lot of talk about, can President Trump cap the amount of interest that's paid on credit cards? I don't know. That remains to be seen. But here's what I do know. There's a whole lot of folks who feel stuck making minimum payments at like 22%. You know you can do better than that. If you put Christmas on a credit card, what's it going to be before you actually pay Christmas off? May? June? Stop kicking the can. Keep more of your own money right now. And how's this for starters? No payments for the next 2 months. That's right. You don't have to make a payment in February or in March. You're done until April. And come April, you're going to be saving a whole boatload of cash. Find out how much money you can save for free. $500, $600, $700, $800 a month. Just last week, we helped a family save more than $1,000 a month, and you can start saving cash today. Again, there's no cost, no obligation, and if we can't save you some cash, we won't waste your time. Let us run the numbers, see if it makes sense. If it doesn't, we'll part friends. But we're not the bank. We don't say no, we say not yet, but here's how. We got to get a plan, and we want to be your mortgage advisor for life. You've got a friend in the mortgage business, savewithconrad.com. NMLS number 2129, equal housing lender, savewithconrad.com, or send me an email, conrad@savewithconrad.com. I wanted to ask you about a story about Sabu here. It's mentioned that Sabu expressed interest and wanted Dennis Corluzzo to contact the WWF about getting him in for one shot. And it's written in the Observer. They even worked out a finish to protect him where he throws someone over the top, then do a plancha over the top on the guy through a table. But by going over the top, he would have eliminated himself while not realizing it. It said that Paul Heyman was against the idea, saying he wants to do a pay-per-view show in a few months and he doesn't want Sabu or anyone else he's building the show around working anyone else's pay-per-views right now. Of course, Sabu allegedly still wants to do it, but Heyman is promising a bigger payoff and a better spot on the show. And Heyman even does a show at the ECW arena, basically telling Sabu he would make him a pay-per-view star and saying how the WWF was begging to get Sabu in the Rumble, but he wouldn't let him go. So talk to me about how this...
Wait. Who was begging to get him in the Rumble?
So Sabu allegedly asked Dennis Corluzzo to get him in.
Okay.
And Paul Heyman does not want Sabu on pay-per-view for the WWF because he's still hopeful that in May of that year, he's going to be able to do a pay-per-view. We know it winds up being April the following year. So we're like 16 months away from this becoming reality. But as the story goes, Heyman goes in the ring in the ECW arena and promises the crowd, the loyal, faithful crowd there, that he's going to make Sabu a pay-per-view star and he's going to do it before the WWF gets a chance. They're begging for him to be in the Royal Rumble, but I'm not going to let him go there and then ruin him, that sort of thing. And I guess ultimately someone decides we're not going to do that. Is it Sabu who decides that he's not interested, or is Vince not interested, or are you trying to keep the peace with Heyman? Why doesn't Sabu appear in the 96 Royal Rumble?
Well, it's an interesting story. I contacted Sabu, contacted Happy first, told him, so I'd like to use Sabu.
Happy's Heyman, by the way.
Yes. And yeah, fuck it. So I called Sabu and said, hey, we'd like to use you in the Rumble and what have you. And we thought, and not to, I probably did it to protect him for Paul, the spot. And yes, that is a spot we had to have him basically eliminate himself and go out, because that's what he did, which was like,
you did that the next year with Mil Mascaris, by the way.
Well, yeah, that was for other reasons. No, yeah. No, amigo, no, yeah. No, yeah. No, yeah. I gotta find my Mascaris mask around here somewhere, wear that one day. But wow. So came and it was like, and that was kind of the pitch. It was like, all right, we'd love to have you. And Sabu says to me, I don't have a problem with it, but you need to speak to my uncle, the Sheik, Ed Farhat. And I said, okay, what do I need to talk to him about? About if this is good for my career or not. Okay. I mean, do you want to talk to your uncle? Or, I mean, I don't know what me talking to your uncle is going to be any different than you talking to your uncle. If you want to do it, then talk to him, tell him you want to do it, and you can get his advice. If you don't want to do it, we won't do it. He says, I really appreciate it if you would talk to him and if you would call him. So sure. So I call the number in Detroit. Gentleman answers the phone. Hello. I said, hello, this is Bruce Prichard with WWE. May I please speak to Ed Farhat? And he says, who's this? I said, it's Bruce Prichard. I'm with WWE. And we were interested in using Sabu at the Royal Rumble. And I was calling to speak to Mr. Farhat. He goes, this is the Sheik. Okay. Well, Mr. Sheik, talk to your nephew and explain to him that we'd like to use him in the Royal Rumble, and we'd like to feature him. He's not going to win, but I think we have a unique way to have him eliminate himself, doing the spot that he does with the tables and what have you, and he ends up eliminating himself. Says, yeah, no, it's not good for him. Okay. Well, hey, thank you for your time. Hangs up. So that's I mean, it just ended there. I was like, fuck this. It's one of the and it is a pet peeve of mine. It's a pet peeve of several others in the industry, where I do not like to deal with agents or managers or lawyers. I like to deal with the talent. And the reason for that is that when you're there producing it, when you are there actually doing what they're contracted to do, and you're putting together a show, the agent or the manager or the lawyer or the friend or the mother or the daughter or the uncle or whatever ain't there either. And I'm not going to deal with them and negotiate a finish with somebody other than the talent. And so yeah, I was done at that point. I was like, okay, next. Called Sabu back, said, yeah, your uncle doesn't think it's good for your career. Give me a call. You ever think this might be good for your career? Bye. That was it.
I know it was you told us about the Rumble spot, where he was going to eliminate himself accidentally, putting somebody through a table. But hypothetically, do you think Vince would have been open to bringing in Sabu full time on the other side of that, or was that always intended to be a one-off, a special attraction for the Rumble?
It was a one-off, but honestly, yeah, I would have loved to have brought Sabu in at the time. And again, I had never dealt with him, but it's funny to hear the Heyman side of things, because look, Paul would tell me how difficult he was to deal with and what have you. And then, but Paul, look, Paul's got to deal with his talent. Paul had to keep his locker room and his shit together. And I think Paul was very, rightfully so, protective of what he had there and didn't want anything to interfere with that and to jeopardize any of that. So it's like, okay, cool. But at that point, man, I was done with Sabu at that point.
Man, what could have been?
Well, but also it's kind of like, I met your uncle, and it's kind of like you being offered something and say, we didn't talk to my uncle about it. You're your own man.
Yeah.
And is your uncle the one that I need to deal with here to make this decision? Because I don't want your uncle. I don't know your uncle. I'm not want you. So I think in some ways between his uncle and I think Sheik had some antiquated ways. You had a tremendous career and a tremendous territory for a time. And that's very important to, it's like you look back at the Detroit area and go, oh my God, boy, the Sheik, they did all this business. They did. But over a period of time, he also killed that territory too, with just all the blood and guts. And Sheik could leave, and go out and go do other territories and make shots and all this stuff. And he made his money elsewhere while the territories, on the downswing. But yeah, that was an interesting one for me.
Let's talk a little bit about a report from the Observer that fans have talked about for a long time, but nobody really knows the story. Maybe you can shed some light on it. It was reported a few weeks back on the Jim Scheinman 900 line that Shawn Michaels inherited $2.5 million from a wrestling fan that he didn't even know had passed away. Meltzer would say, this is a true story. It happened a few months back and word just got out. Michaels had attempted to keep it quiet at the press time. At the press conference, Michaels in Fresno was asked about this and got really mad and said no comment and said to never bring the subject up again. Michael still wants to continue wrestling, although he's probably moving into a bigger house. Why do you think Shawn was so hesitant to talk about this? Was he just embarrassed that a fan would do this? It's a weird story, I admit, but
yeah, I don't know. And I never talked to him about it. However, I will say this. If there are any rich fans out there
yes,
that would like to put me in their will and leave their entire fortune to me, I won't be embarrassed by it, and I will be happy to accept it.
my DMs are open and I can help Bruce with that. And Bruce,
Yeah,
I'll just keep a small finder's fee and we'll get you guys
very
together.
small, very
Yes.
small. Yes,
Tiny.
yes, tiny.
Normal
0.05%.
Why do you think that's one of those stories that people always whisper about, but nobody ever, it's never like on the record. There's never been a clear cut path to an answer. I don't know. I'm like you. I don't think it would be, hey, this guy was such a fan of me. He left me some money, or this lady or whoever it was left me a bunch
I
of
don't
money.
know.
Like weird.
Now you're going to make me ask him about it.
Well, find out for us, by God.
Because I never have. I mean, I never have. I probably heard it in lore, but I couldn't tell you one way or the other. I remember it. I remember the buzz about it, but don't know the extent of it. Don't know why, what, or whatever. But yeah, Shawn was popular. Maybe just a big fan. So by God, I'm going to leave everything to Shawn Michaels. Okay,
Yeah, we can make that happen. If you want to do that for Bruce, let us know.
please.
The Observer would also say Aisling Allen, who was originally going to be Sister Love, was in a video with Hunter Hearst Helmsley, so she may be his valet. Either way, it's clear she's going to have a major role this year. Who was this? Why didn't she end up amounting to anything in the WWF? And what the heck was Sister Love gonna be once upon a time, Bruce?
Who?
Aisling Allen? Do you remember there being a discussion of a Sister Love?
I don't. I know back in the day that I always wanted to have a sister love.
She's a Playboy playmate.
Man, I have no recollection of that. Like I said, back in the day, to be a part of the Brother Love show and do that, yes, I had designs on having a heel like a Sherry. It's kind of like a Sister Love, but and that was also to manage and to do. I don't.
She came out on the Raw Ball. She was, first of all, she's from San Antonio.
Okay.
She was she was a Playmate of the Month in August of '92 in Playboy. And I guess she was on the Raw Bowl that you guys do in early January of '96.
Now you made me write it down, Conrad.
She just came down the ramp and I guess sash saying Raw Bowl '96 or whatever like that. Yeah, I don't know what the story was supposed to be.
I'm gonna look it up, by God, and I'll see if that jogs my memory anymore. I don't remember. What a lovely sister.
Do you think the idea was to have her be the Heartlet in some sort of Jim Baker type storyline. And that's maybe where the sister love came from. Cause I know sometimes you guys would play off of things that had happened on TV. Like you had a
Yeah,
Clinton
but Brother Love
impersonator.
wasn't a character at that point.
No, maybe it was
So
an internal nickname. I'm not sure.
yeah, I that's probably what's throwing me off. I mean, I'll probably go look her up and do some background and figure out, oh, okay, I remember her and things of that nature. But the sister love stuff, I think I would have known about that.
Yeah. It's weird because I think she winds up leaving the company. She does some,
She worked for the company,
yeah. I mean, she
or
walked
did she
down.
just do a couple apperances?
I'm not sure, who knows what you guys were
Because there
doing
was
at that
look,
point.
there were times that we would have we need more sexuality on the show, or we need more of this, more of that, and we would hire models and try them out in different things is just to have them interact or to do a little something with them and things of that nature. But yeah, this is a new one for me.
Well, let me
But
ask
again,
you,
the sister love thing is something I wanted way back when.
once upon a time, wasn't there an idea of bringing back Brother Love to manage like, the Headbangers or something? Wasn't that 96? Or was that
Yeah, well,
97?
I don't know. That was Shotgun Saturday Night and did it for a couple of episodes.
So that's late 96. This would be early 96.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who
I mean,
knows?
but that was out of Shotgun Saturday Night. Anything can happen. Oh my God, Brother Love appeared and did this. I was never on any of the main shows with them or did anything like that. And at this time, I certainly wasn't looking to be back on the road or to be doing any character work on a full-time basis. So that's like, I don't know, man. I'm not. But again, back in the day, yeah.
All right, guys, check this out. Blue Chew just dropped something crazy. I'm talking next level championship gold plated energy. Blue Chew Gold is the newest innovation from the #1 chewable ED brand. And let me tell you, buddy, this ain't your grandpa's little blue pill. This is a 4-in-1 beast that's setting the gold standard for performance. We're talking 2 ingredients for blood flow to keep that rocket pumping, mixed with apomorphine and oxytocin to turn up the arousal and connection in both your brain and body. Blue Chew Gold actually dissolves under your tongue, and it works in as little as just 15 minutes. That means you can get it on quicker and stay in the game longer. Elevation without hesitation, peak passion and peak performance in a single tablet. And ladies, if you're listening, both of you, send your man the link and make him a trophy husband with Blue Chew Gold. Make life easier by getting harder and discover your options at bluechew.com. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Get 10% off your first month of Blue Chew Gold with the code WRESTLE. That's promo code WRESTLE. Visit bluechew.com for details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring today's podcast. Before this Royal Rumble, there's a single line in the Observer that reads like this: John Hawk is headed in after the Rumble as a heel. Turns out he's a pretty good podcaster. What say you?
Never heard him.
Never heard of him. Wow. One of your great close personal friends.
No, you want to know where his tryout match was, that same Bethlehem show.
Oh, are you serious?
Yes.
One of the most famous, man, I wish I could be at that taping just to see it all happen. Are you kidding? Goodbye, balls. Welcome, JBL. See you later, Landell. I mean, what
Yeah.
and then there's a young Matt Hardy doing the honors for Landell. That's a cool show in history.
Exactly.
That's
Exactly. So yeah, so John tells a story. He might have done a podcast about this, I don't know, about him coming in and he was working for Otto Vons in
Awesome.
Austria or Germany, where the hell they were. And there was only one phone there. And it was a pay phone where I could call, and it was a certain time and he would be there. And that's how I finally got a hold of John and had him come in and Jerry Briscoe and I saw him that night, and we're like, "Hey, want to bring you in." I'm sure other people have different versions of that story, but Jerry Briscoe and mine is the same.
Let's talk a little bit about tiptoeing into the Attitude Era. You know, that Bret Hart British Bulldog match we mentioned earlier from pay-per-view that you're going to show on Monday Night Raw. Man, there is a ton of blood in that match.
Mhm.
And I think that's one of the reasons I actually like it. I think the atmosphere for SummerSlam 92 at Wembley is unbelievable and unmatched. But the actual match itself, I thought the blood added another layer. I really enjoyed the Bret and Bulldog match. I just recently watched it back and loved it all over again. But when you guys show it on Raw, you know you're going to be showing a very bloody match. So you kind of have like a disclaimer to start. And it's Sonny playing pool and talking about how the action is of a graphic nature, and it's very suggestive. And this is really about a year and a half before we start to see Attitude, but it does feel like we're trying some more adult themed stuff here in 96. Who's advocating for that? I don't think Vince Russo is necessarily in the fold. I know he's
No.
working on the magazine, but I don't think he's in the writer's room necessarily. So, hey, we're going to show a bloody match on Raw.
Writer's
and-
room was the writer's room was my basement in Monroe. So that was the extent of the writer's room, or Vince's dining room table. There's only two places we ever wrote.
I'm trying to get to the to advocate to figure out who's advocating for. We're going to show a bloody match on Raw, and we're going to have a girl in a bra stroking a pool stick between her breastises, and that will be the way we introduce this on Monday Night Raw. It feels a little bit different than maybe what we've been seeing in the years past with the WWF.
Yeah, and I think that there was a turn toward more sexuality, more adult themes. So that was probably all of us going, what can we do? And that usually Vince leading the charge of what can we do more provocative on the shows that's a little bit more adult themed without crossing the line. Look, in the old days, you would literally do a big X across the screen, but that X would be strategically placed, or how wide it was, so that you could just see glimpses of shit. And the first time I ever saw it was with the Blackjacks, either Mulligan or Lanza, and they put the claw on. And when they put the claw on, the guy starts bleeding and all this shit. So they move the head and all this stuff all over the place. And you got the X across the screen. Can't watch this. This is censored. But you're seeing it all in glimpses and what have you.
Let's talk about the Royal Rumble. We're finally here. It's sold out January 21st, Fresno's arena there, 9,600 fans. By far the biggest wrestling show ever in Central California. It sold out a few days in advance, and the show is a little controversial. We'll talk about all of that, but I do want to mention before we get going, as a reminder, we're not too far removed from the whole Marine beatdown story with Shawn Michaels and him having to forfeit the title and all that shenanigans. And we know when he comes back, you guys do the whole, he collapsed on Monday Night Raw in a match with Owen Hart after an enziguri. And now Shawn is a beloved babyface. You know, he's just been a heel at WrestleMania the year prior, but now he's a babyface. We're getting ready for him to win the Royal Rumble and achieve his boyhood dream. Was everybody locked in and sold and settled on that as you head to Royal Rumble 96? Was all of that locked in place?
Yes.
Okay.
Knew where we were going with that. Yes. So it was, I've told the story before about the collapsing thing in the ring. It was a time where post-concussive syndrome was in the news, and it was, look, it was a real thing. And Shawn was having, these things early on, not by the time that he did it in the ring, but thought of, what if, because it had been a while. And again, it was just big in the news So what if in the middle of a match, don't do anything, and he just collapses, which has happened, and it happened on the football field. So it was something that people had been made aware of and seemed to make sense. So, but
The
yeah,
con-
we were looking for Sean to be that baby face and give him that shot.
the continuity doesn't necessarily feel like everybody's on the same page. Dr. Jeffrey Unger is going to do an interview saying that Shawn Michaels is 100% fine and fully recovered.
Mhm.
But a few weeks prior to this, he was saying that Shawn should never return to wrestling. And then Shawn, in his own interview, announced that he's returning and he's doing so against the wishes of his doctor. Meanwhile, we're seeing the fucking doctor saying he's 100%. The left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. I'm sure somebody was frustrated by this. Fair to say?
Well, I guess somebody was. I wasn't.
You don't think Vince was either? It feels like that would have
No.
really annoyed Vince.
Yes, no. It's like, come on, man. It's a story.
Yeah.
We're telling stories here, by God.
Got it.
Stay with the goddamn story. Don't tell
All
your
right.
own fucking story. We're I won't say it. I was gonna do the Michael Hayes. Hey, I'm over here doing this. You just hold its head.
Oh, got
Yeah.
you. I know the uncensored version of that.
Yeah.
I've heard that on Cornette's pod before.
Yeah.
Vince McMahon is going to
I'm
be
petting
cited.
this dog. You just hold its head. Yes.
Petting is a great way to say it. Thank you
Yes.
for that.
There you go.
Meltzer was critical of the announcing. He says the announcing here was a major weakness. He said Vince appeared distracted for most of the show. Mr. Perfect was better than he was at Survivor Series, so he's getting more familiar with what's going on, but he's not up to the level. And there were some missed eliminations and a lack of knowledge when it came to moves and things like that. When do you think Vince, was there ever anybody behind the scenes saying, "Hey Vince, your highest and best use is not being an announcer"? Or was Vince advocating that, "Hey, I know how to sell this better than anybody else. Let me pet the dog. You just hold its head"? Chat me through that. Was there ever a discussion about should Vince or shouldn't Vince be the guy on the mic?
I think Vince saw himself as the voice of WWE.
Hmm.
And he was commentary. He felt that he knew how to sell it. And again, a lot of people get confused with what Vince did. People get hung up on Vince is the worst play-by-play guy in the business. He was. Absolutely. But Vince didn't do play-by-play.
Right.
Vince told stories. And the backdrop was a wrestling match. And the idea behind the wrestling match was to tell you a story about why and what have you, and to build excitement and build intrigue. Gordon Soley told you about the German suplex, and JR likes to call holds and what have you. It's all fine. JR's a great play-by-play guy, but he had difficulty sometimes telling stories. I think he got there, but it was, people confuse what Vince did with play-by-play. Vince never claimed to be a play-by-play guy. He was your host. He was the guy that brought you through it. He was trying to look at it like a fan and basically a promoter to get you excited and do all this stuff. That's why you had the analysis of Bruno Sammartino, which equated to one line in the replay, and you had Jesse Ventura. So it's like, yeah, man, Dave, if you're just figuring that out now, you hadn't been paying attention.
At what point were you running the show at Gorilla? Are you doing that here? Like when Vince is out on the headsets here for Rumble 96? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Now, I probably wasn't married. I'm trying to think by this time. I may have been actually at Gorilla and running Gorilla and doing all of it. But there was like in the early 90s and even going back in the 80s where I had a wireless headset and I was just kind of still doing everything backstage and still being able to talk to the truck and to Vince, but I wasn't tied down to Gorilla at the table. By this time, I want to say I probably was Gorilla at the table.
How was Gorilla different then to now? Because we've seen on Unreal, what it looks like these days, but back then it was a much more simple.
It was
approach,
a table with 2 monitors on it. That's it. That's all it was.
You had a way to communicate. So who were you able to communicate with the truck and with the announce desk, or what was the setup?
No, I was able to communicate with the truck and the Vince, not the announcers. Just I had a separate channel directly to Vince.
I got you.
And he had a separate channel directly to me, which he didn't always use. Most of the time, he would just do it over the mics in break. And God damn it, Bruce! What the fuck? There is a audio of that from a Shotgun Saturday Night in San Antonio somewhere that lives. Bruce, what are we doing here? And thank God that's the only thing that they shared from that evening of stuff. But it was good because it was live and it was going out on the satellite. People were able to pick it up.
We're not going to be able to share that with you here on the show, but we can share it on social media. So by the time you hear this, we will have that up on our social media at Prichard Show. Go check it out.
It was So no, it was just a very simple setup. It was 2 monitors. Later on, I got the second monitor to be wide shot of the camera 1 and camera 2. So I could always see everything around the ring. And then I saw a program in the other monitor, but it was me. And, we didn't have anybody producing talent. If anything, I did, but I didn't produce Vince a lot. I would tell Vince where he was going. Either me or Kevin Dunn would guide him as far as, where you're going, what you're coming into, what you're going out of, and things like that. But, for the most part, we all had our shit, and I was kind of running the backstage Gorilla.
Let's talk a little bit about the dark match here because this was fantastic. I guess it's actually on the pre-show. Duke the Dumpster Drosey, or as you say,
Drosey.
Yeah, I know. I like to fuck
Drosey.
It is. We're getting fancy.
Exclamation point over the E. That would be Drosey.
I think he's out, Bubba. He beats Hunter Hearst Helmsley by DQ in 6 minutes and 25 seconds. And Meltzer would say this was the unannounced pre-show match where the winner would get to enter the Rumble at number 30 and the loser would be the first one in. I got to tell you, I really like that. Do you remember how whose idea that was or how that came to be? I would be a fan of that being a thing now. That's a fun twist.
Probably either me or Cornette. Because it sounds like something we would do.
Yeah.
Not something Vince would give me beef for. I got down. Gives a shit. But yeah, it's a good one. May steal that.
Let's talk about the first match that night. Ahmed Johnson is going to get a win over Jeff Jarrett by DQ. Meltzer would say Johnson is really green, and the transitions from spot to spot were weak. Jarrett tried to carry it, but it's hard when nobody buys Johnson being in trouble because he's so physically impressive, and he doesn't know how to sell to overcome his impressive size. Either way, though, we know there's going to be the big guitar shot off the top rope. That gets the DQ. The guitar shot sounds like $1 million. Johnson's going to kneel over from the shot, but he recovers before Jeff can get back in the dressing room, and he gets up and chases him and never catches him. Star and a quarter.
Yes, he did. Caught him backstage. We just didn't have any cameras available. I saw the whole thing.
You
Jeff right in the eye.
JCW Lunacy. New episodes every Thursday night at 7 p.m. on YouTube. For over 25 years, JCW has delivered the very best in pro wrestling entertainment, bringing fans deep storytelling drama, gut-busting comedy, and unbelievable in-ring action. From wild characters to unforgettable rivalries, don't miss a single moment. Tune in every Thursday night at 7 p.m. on YouTube. JCW Lunacy.
You see early in his career, in the WWF at least, Ahmed Johnson is doing some crazy stuff for a guy his size. He's doing dives over the top rope to the floor. He's doing moonsaults. That does feel like, as a fan, that would be a big part of his appeal, but eventually it stops. Is that because there were just injury risk concerns? Is that not the style of a WWF big man? Why do you think I'm okay?
It really didn't fit, and during that time you're trying to create a big monster baby face in Ahmed, and he didn't look like the guy that would do a lot of the stuff. Then also, yes, injuries, because it was dangerous for who he was in the ring with and dangerous for him because he didn't know how to protect people in a lot of those things that he did. And that probably the bigger issue, and you can use the antidote and the excuse, if you will, to say, hey man, big man shouldn't be doing all those things. Oh yeah, right. But it was really like, hey, people don't want to take you, lay there for your moonsault, man. Nobody wants to catch you, dog. So it was part of safety for Ahmed and safety for who he was working with.
Talk to me a little bit about Ahmed and Jeff. Ahmed did a shoot promo, if you will, in 97, and he targeted Jeff as part of that. Was there any hurt feelings over this guitar shot? Do you know if these guys ever were cross in any way?
No. How did he target Jeff?
Well, I don't know. I guess he was just taking shots at him in promos, and everybody ever since has wondered, hey, was there heat over this finish or the guitar shot? Or because, through the years, we've all heard Jake the Snake say that, his addiction problems, a lot of them really started with the Honky Tonk Man guitar shot.
Okay.
And so
I don't think they started there.
Well,
but hey, no, the Honky Tonk guitar shot to Jake was legit, and that was a guitar that had the rod going down the back of it to reinforce it.
Yes.
And things. That guitar wasn't gimmicked in any way, shape, or form, and that guitar shot really fucked Jake up.
Let's talk a little bit about the next match here. The Smoking Guns are going to be in there with the Body Donnas. Of course, that's Chris Candido and your brother. And they're going to go 11 minutes and 14 seconds. Meltzer would say everyone worked hard, but for whatever reason, it didn't click. They get 2 stars. Sonny's going to be distracting the ref, so there can be a count. The Body Donnas go for the double suplex on Bart, but as he's in the air, Billy tackles him. Bart falls on Zip, and that's the pin. And Sonny's never really thought of as someone with training to bump, much less being a big bump taker. And she's going to take a big spill from the hard apron to the floor bump like she did here. Where were you and the company on Sonny at this point? We know at the end of the year, we're going to start taking victory laps saying she's the most downloaded woman on AOL and all that sort of thing. But was that all apparent in 1996, like in January to start the year? Did we already think that, hey, this is where we're headed with her and she's the superstar?
Oh, we were on our way. Absolutely. She was the superstar of the bunch at that time. Yes. And again, that's a big part of the reason she went with, the Guns and what have you, and kind of make a little baby face Sonny. But wait a minute, Zip dropped the fall? That's fucked up. I don't think Skippy would have dropped the fall.
If your brother had his druthers, who, what would his gimmick in the WWF would be? Probably not a Body Donna. Fair to say?
Correct.
What do you think it would have been? A Dr. Tom character.
Oh, Dr. John Richards. Yeah.
Okay.
I did a search the other day, trying to remember who the doctor was that we used to use and this was even before my time. There was a doctor in California that we used to use, and I typed in WWE/WWF doctors, see if what names had come up. It gave the present head of the medical that we currently have, and one of our doctors currently, and like two other names, and then the fifth doctor on the list, Dr. Tom Prichard.
I love that.
This was a real like list that someone had compiled of the actual behind the scenes doctors in the WWE.
That's tremendous.
And old Dr. John Richards was number 5. I was like, God damn. And then it was on somebody trying to be credible. And it's just like, okay. That's
Do you remember Sonny being hurt in this match? I only
No.
ask because I don't think she took any other bumps in the company. This may have been the only physicality she had in the WWF.
No, but look, I think she took bumps at Smoky Mountain and what have you. It was not something that she hadn't done before. We weren't high on ballets and things like that, taking bumps at this juncture.
We got to talk about the next match. This is when we see Razor Ramon.
I'm sorry, I got to walk that back because Sherry did. Sherry was great bump taker. She's a great worker.
Speaking of trying things with attractive ladies, Marlena is going to be making her debut here. She's going to come out with Gold Dust. This is an interesting twist to the presentation. Meltzer would describe her as nicely dressed with an unlit cigar in her mouth and a director's chair. The next day, we find out she's Marlena. Of course, in real life, she's Terry Runnels, the real life wife of Gold Dust. And we had seen her in WCW as Alexandra York before. How does Marlena come to be a part of the Gold Dust presentation? Is Vince high on her? Is that a Dustin suggestion? What do you remember?
I think we were all high on her, and it was an interesting presentation. So there was a bit of heat on the androgynous character that was Gold Dust. So to add to that controversy, but also to play into, is like, this is not a gay character. He's got this female that is with him. So to be able to rub her up against him and wonder, what is this relationship? Are they in a relationship? What exactly is it? So that was the thinking behind Marlena and bringing her in. But we were all pretty high on the Marlena character.
There's lots of unpleasant chants at Goldust, something that would never happen these days. In the end, 14 minutes and 17 seconds later, Razor Ramon's nightmare comes to an end. He's going to drop the Intercontinental title to Goldust. The 1, 2, 3 kid is a part of the finish here, and that allows Goldust to get the pin. What'd you think of this match? I know Razor was reluctant to do it. I'm sure that, sprinkling in a little 1, 2, 3 kid may have been a negotiation, or at least that's the way it feels to me. How did that happen?
I think, obviously you need somewhere to go afterwards, but what to me is a shame is that we didn't do more.
Yeah.
Because I thought they did have good chemistry, and it was great. So it's like, all right, but Razor didn't want to do it. And my point in all this is that was Razor half-assing it because he didn't want to do it. And it was still damn good. So to me, my takeaway is, what a shame. What could have been.
Allegedly, immediately after this is when we're going to find out that Razor Ramon is going to be suspended for a marijuana failure on a drug test. Of course, these days, I don't think that's nearly as big of a deal, but once upon a time, it was illegal in all 50 states. We know the laws have changed since. So, but there's been a bit of a debate about this suspension. Was it a true suspension or not based on him leaving for WCW? What was the correct timing on this? Was it an old test failure that once he puts in notice is then enforced, or is that just silliness? Hey, he gave us notice, but we got the drug test around the same time. It was just a happy accident.
I couldn't tell you. the actual series of events. I have no idea. But I
Either
didn't,
way,
you know, I know when I'm informed of shit. And I'm
sure.
informed when he was suspended. I didn't know when. First of all, I didn't know when drug tests were taking place and
Right.
when results were given.
Do you remember being at this show when you think back to January of 96? Did you know Razor was leaving and going to WCW? Had he already put in notice by this point, as best you can recall?
I don't think so. I
Okay.
think we found out right after, but maybe he did because if you go back, you know, the 90 days, that probably would tell you the time frame. And if it was, you know, less than 90 days or whatever, more than 90 days, we probably didn't know.
Let's talk a little bit about the Rumble match. We know this is a vehicle to make Shawn Michaels. He's going to win the Rumble. 58 minutes and 49 seconds. He's going to super kick Diesel over the top rope, just as Diesel is eliminating Kama. They're going to play everyone's entrance music as they're coming down. You know, different times they didn't always do that, so
Right.
that's really added a lot to the presentation, and I'm glad it stuck around. Something that stands out when you watch this back, though, in January of 96. So this is a year and a half before the silly NWA invasion angle of 97. When Dory Funk comes out, Vince McMahon acknowledges him as being a former NWA world champion and said his brother Terry was in Germany with Bruce Willis, and mentioned that Terry was also invited to be in the Royal Rumble. That's kind of a cool thing. Very rarely did we hear Vince McMahon acknowledge another organization on TV like this. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, when you, without going back to Hoss Funk
Yeah.
and WWE, you know, that was Dory's claim to fame. Dory was the longest uh, reigning NWA World Heavyweight Champion simultaneously, 4.5 years. So that was Dory's claim to fame, and Dory was, I think, best known by everybody as a former NWA champion. And
Meltzer
Hoss Funk.
Meltzer's going to heap a lot of praise on Doug Gilbert, saying that even though he got zero crowd reaction, his work and his bumps in particular were really, really good.
Yeah.
Of course, Vader is going to dispense of him fairly quickly. He's even going to throw out one of the members of the SWAT team. We haven't spent any time talking about them today. The Headhunters. This is like if me and Dave Silva got tanned and shaved our heads and learned how to do moonsaults. How in the world do the Headhunters become a part of the WWF here?
Oh, Victor Quinones. Victor Quinones was one of the owners in Puerto Rico, and Victor also, you know, helped book and in Mexico, in Japan, and just several different organizations, and had ties to several talents. He wasn't necessarily a manager, but yet he got people booked, and I'm sure he took a percentage here and there when he got guys booked, or they paid him up front. The folks, for us, Victor was on payroll, so that was his job, was to find us and get us talent and people we wanted to use. So yeah, the squat team didn't really work out. I think the squat team, when they came out with Cornette on TV, is a moment in time that Jim Cornette wishes that he could wipe away. It was absolutely horrible. Great guys, unbelievable guys, man. Spent a lot of time with them in Mexico, and they took me all over Mexico, and were absolutely just a load of fun. And as their headhunter gimmick, where they were basically baby Abdullahs, was very successful in Puerto Rico and in Mexico and in Japan. But if you can imagine, these guys were probably 350, each of them identical twins. And in Mexico, their taxis are green and white Volkswagen Bugs. So I'm 230, they're 350, and we're getting into a taxi. One of them gets in the front seat, and I get in the back seat with the other one and the driver. And you talk about a scene. It just was, I remember being there going, how the fuck are we doing this? But man, they commanded respect, and they were really good class guys. I liked them both.
It's a new year, and colder days means this is the moment your winter wardrobe really has to deliver. If you're craving a winter reset, start with pieces truly made to last season after season. Quince brings together premium materials, thoughtful design, and enduring quality so you stay warm, look sharp, and feel your best all season long. Quince has everything you need: men's Mongolian cashmere sweaters, wool coats, leather, and suede outerwear that actually hold up to daily wear and still looks good. Their outerwear is especially impressive. I'm talking down jackets, wool coats, Italian leather outerwear that will keep you warm when it's really cold. Each piece is made from premium materials, all done in trusted factories that meet rigorous standards for both craftsmanship and ethical production. But maybe most importantly, by cutting out the middleman and all the traditional markups, Quince is able to deliver to you the same quality as a luxury brand, but at a fraction of the price. And the result is classic styles that you'll love that are going to hold up year after year. I ordered the Cotton Luxe t-shirts from Quince, and not only was the price right, but these are the softest, most comfortable t-shirts I've ever had. Quince has them for under $30, and you save even more when you buy 3. You'll love these. I also want to mention, when you're talking about coats, I got one for my dad for Christmas. He absolutely loved it. A home run. He looks sharp, he's staying warm, and mama's happy. I don't want to know more. Refresh your winter wardrobe with Quince. Go right now to quince.com/wrestle for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/wrestle. Free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/wrestle. QUINCE.com/wrestle. Let's talk a little bit about Vader. He's going to be on a collision course with Yokozuna. They're going to go at it, and eventually Vader goes down after a headbutt. And when they start battling each other near the ropes, here comes Shawn Michaels, who eliminates them both. Then he's going to throw out the 1, 2, 3 kid, but Vader himself gets back in, and he throws everyone in the ring out. Gorilla Monsoon's going to come in. He goes jaw to jaw with Vader, and Monsoon is going to overrule all the eliminations Vader did after being eliminated. So we're going to restore some order, and we know where we're headed. The legend is that Vader tore his shoulder back at Bash at the Beach in Huntington Beach in that match on the beach there with Hulk Hogan, and he needed surgery. But you guys still wanted him to make a splash at the Rumble before he had surgery. Is that the way that all went down?
Yes. Yeah, we got damaged goods, and he didn't tell us till after he was signed, and it was like, okay, well, you got to have the surgery anyway. So let's go out and make a splash, and let's do this and give a reason. Give you a debut, give you an impactful debut, and then give a reason for you to go away.
Bob Holly is in the Royal Rumble, but it said that he wasn't supposed to be. Originally, this was a spot for Bam Bam Bigelow, who Dave Meltzer would report was the only no-show for the Rumble. What do you remember about Bam Bam Bigelow and Bob Holly here?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't. Was it this may have been at a point where Bam Bam had just gotten fed up and left. But as far as no show, I don't know at what point that we knew that Bam Bam wasn't going to be there or not. She always got extras. And if Bob Holly had won that Royal Rumble and gone on and wrestled Bret Hart at WrestleMania, and then by God, he won the belt, then he just beat everybody.
I think it could have worked.
You never know.
Hey, let's talk about Steve Austin. He's going to make his Royal Rumble debut here. He actually started with the company earlier this same month, January of 1996. But when he comes to the ring that day, Vince McMahon introduces him on commentary. Steve Austin, known as the Ringmaster. Chat me up. We know that this doesn't last too terribly long. I mean, we're only a few months of the Ringmaster. Did you have, obviously nobody probably would have predicted what Stone Cold was going to become, but when he's running out to the Rumble in 96, I don't think anybody would have imagined he's going to be the biggest, fastest rising star in wrestling next year at the Rumble. and quote unquote win the thing. And I know we did Final Four and all that, but what a year that had to be, that transition from Rumble 96, his first Rumble, to Rumble 97. You want to talk about moving up the food chain in a hurry. Whatever it is, he had it, and you guys saw it fairly soon, did you not?
Yes, and a lot of that, goes to early matches with Shawn Michaels, where they went around in live events, no program, no angle, no nothing. And Shawn, they would go out and do 40 minutes every night, and Shawn would, every chance he got, say, "This is the guy. Put me with him. I want to work with him. This is the guy. My God, he can do it all. He's fucking great." Everybody wanted to work with Steve because it's just, he loved it. He went out and enjoyed everything he did, and you saw that. So yeah, this was just the beginning, kind of showing it, and Steve puts everything he has into everything he does, and this was his opportunity to show these guys. I hate the fucking ringmaster, so he would give it every chance he could to just show people what he could do.
I want to encourage people to check this out because, believe it or not, this is actually Steve Austin's just his third match in the WWE. He debuted on Monday Night Raw, beating a young Matt Hardy on December 18th in Newark, Delaware. That would have been December 18th. The very next day, he gets a win for Superstars. It's a Superstars taping where he beats a young Scotty 2 Hottie. He was billed as Scott Taylor. And once again, motherfucking Bethlehem. If I could go back and watch any TV taping in history, I think I might choose December 19th, 1995. I mean, it's where JBL's having his tryout. It's Stone Cold's second night in the company. See you later, Buddy Lindell. Sorry about your damn luck, Santa Claus. What an eventful damn live event that was.
Yeah, it's crazy when you go back and sometimes go back and watch the Superstars and Challenge tapings from the late 80s and see the enhancement talent that is there. And not all of them, but look, there's a few stars that came out of that, and just young talent and what have you. And I remember the Hardys, when we signed them and gave them their contracts, and they had to tell me how old they were. And I'm looking at them. I remember it was in a vomitorium. I'm talking and all this stuff. So wait a minute, dude, you guys have been since I remember you guys like in 89 and stuff. And they're like, "Yes, sir." And then they thought they were in trouble because they, at least Jeff was underage. And yeah, good times. But again, you look back at some of that talent in the 80s and stuff that later on became stars and became names, and it happens. Quite a few, but then even more so during this time frame.
Let's talk about the end of the match. About 58 minutes in, Shawn Michaels is going to drop kick Isaac Yankem out. So that's going to be Isaac Yankem's last Royal Rumble appearance. Next year, Isaac Yankem will be Fake Diesel. And the year after that, he's going to be, I can't believe this is real, setting the Undertaker on fire at Royal Rumble 98. So think about his run in Rumbles. Isaac Yankem, Fake Diesel, and then Kane.
I need to correct you on some things.
Okay.
First of all, going back, it's not Newark, Delaware. It's Newark, Delaware.
Okay. We
Second
gave
of
a
all,
fuck. Thanks for that. That was helpful. We
Okay,
all gave a
because
fuck.
I know. Listen. The population of Newark was. I've already got 8 texts, and we haven't even released the show yet.
No.
The people say it's Newark, and
there's 30,000 people in the town.
It just wasn't Diesel.
Bruce.
His name is not Fake Diesel. It was Diesel. Diesel. Glenn Jacobs portrayed a Christmas tree, a Unabomber, Isaac Yankem DDS,
an evil dentist who didn't value his own teeth.
No. Diesel and Kane.
And then he was the undead / dead
mayor of Knoxville County, whatever. He's in Tennessee, soon to be governor of Tennessee, I hope. I don't know if he is or not. I always tell him that. So, should I call you governor yet? Bruce, I'm not running for governor
Yeah.
yet.
We see Diesel and Kama throw out Duke, and the final man in that leaves Diesel and Shawn Michaels and Kama and Smith. Davey Boy goes out because Shawn Michaels clotheslines him over the top, followed by Diesel throwing out Kama. And then what do you know? Shawn Michaels super kicks Diesel out of the ring. Shawn Michaels is the champ. They're teasing that Diesel is going to attack Shawn, but instead they do their high five routine. Now that's interesting because we're going to be transitioning after he high fives the babyface Shawn Michaels, who just super kicked him out of the ring. He's going to push Paul Bearer. The Undertaker, I guess, meets with Diesel on the aisle as they're passing each other, and Diesel shoves Paul Bearer, and these guys square off. The officials have to pull them apart. It's hard for me to reconcile the high five to Shawn Michaels. Like, either you're happy that that guy won, or you're pissed off you lost, and you're pushing Paul Bearer. Can it be both? What happened here?
Exactly. It can be both. Show respect to Shawn and congratulatory to his little buddy. And then I'm pissed off that I lost, and now there's this large mortician in my way.
So let's talk.
Yes.
Let's talk about that Rumble match before we talk about the world title match. Where do you rank the 96 Royal Rumble? I know this one feels like it's one of the more forgotten ones. A lot of people, myself included, count 97 as their favorite Rumble. Others would reference 92. Where does 96 rank for you? You are trying to bring in some outside forces, and there's a lot of what could have beens with the Dan Severins who didn't appear, who at the Sabu's who didn't appear, that sort of thing.
But I also view it as fun. And I think I look at it as fun, and this from a personal standpoint. I look at it because Dory Funk Jr., my childhood hero, was in it, because Doug Gilbert got to be in it and have a moment. And in many ways, we were crowning the next guy in Shawn Michaels. So I looked at it as fun, and it had a lot of, as Pat Patterson would say, had a lot of gaga at a pace.
Let's talk about the main event. This is not the best match we ever saw with Bret Hart and The Undertaker. It feels like in 97, these guys had much better matches. For whatever reason, it's not really clicking here. And maybe it's because they're both positioned as baby faces. At this point, there's mixed cheers. At some points, people are booing Bret. At other points, they're really booing The Undertaker. I don't think fans maybe knew how to feel about this, but ultimately we know that we're going to get a DQ. Diesel is going to get involved. He's going to grab the ref and throw him out of the ring. And this is after Undertaker's made a comeback and hit the Tombstone pile driver. So it does feel like, hey, maybe The Undertaker was just screwed out of the world title shot. What'd you think of the match? Why didn't it click as well as their matches in 97? Was it the babyface dynamic, or was there something else at play?
It was the babyface dynamic, without a doubt. And look, there's times that you wrestle with that from the standpoint of, you put two popular guys in there. Well, who is the audience going to root for? And if you divide the audience, not always a good thing. So I think in this situation, I don't know that it was a bad thing, but the audience was definitely conflicted on who to root for and at what time. But also it was a little bit of a turbulent time because business wasn't good and people were upset, the Razor shit, and there was just odd goings on at the time. And it was a moment in time where, as you reflect, that so many things have more meaning now than they did in the time, because in the time it just felt tumultuous, and you couldn't put your finger on why. And when you can look back at it with 2025 goggles, and you can say, okay, well, Diesel was unhappy and Diesel was looking to make a move. Razor was making his move. So maybe that's why they were difficult to deal with at that point in time. So you're just battling other things that are conflicted. So everybody felt it, and I think it just kind of fed everything, and it was a black cloud over everything that. And I say that looking back on it. At the time, you're just going, shit, man, maybe it's off a little bit. But overall, I thought the show was a good show. And I think that, the Taker and Brett match was, look, man, was it their best one? No, but it also wasn't bad. And we were trying to tell other stories and get to Taker and Diesel. And, you got to get Brett over because we got to go Brett and Sean, and we got to start telling that story immediately after. So it just was it was there were a lot of things that we didn't know in the time that you can look back at and go, okay, well, that may have been happening during this time. And that could be a reason why things felt off. But at the same time, I don't think that it was bad. Like the Razor stuff, the Razor Gold Dust stuff was good. And I just wish it could have played out more.
Let me ask you, if you had to do over again, I know fuck all about wrestling, so I'm trying to learn. Would you have still formatted this the same way? Would you have finished with the Rumble match last and send them home happy? Because a lot of people come to the Royal Rumble to see the Royal Rumble. And I know at different times we tried things like this where the title match was after. Could it have made more sense to finish with a DQ if you know that's your finish of your world title and then do the Royal Rumble?
Maybe.
Or would you do it this same way if you had it to do all over again?
Maybe. But we know that now. We didn't know that then.
Right.
You're going into it and looking at it. Let's end with the championship match. And again, hindsight's 2020. So if we knew then what we know now, maybe we would have. But then again, maybe we wouldn't have too. So it's just in the moment, and it's funny. People that don't have to make decisions in life are usually the loudest to critique decisions that are made by other people. And you have to make a decision at the end of the day. I always say on Mondays and Fridays, hey kids, 10:15, none of this shit will matter. And you go on. But at 8:00, we made our decisions, and this is what we're going to do. And 10:15, we've already made decisions, so it really doesn't matter. So you have to have you got to make a decision. You got to go, and that was our decision, and that's what we went with. And it can be second guessed, and I can argue that second guessing to that point of goddamn, probably should have been with the Rumble.
Well, I'm asking you now, like I'm saying, with the benefit of hindsight, all these years later,
maybe, but
would you have
maybe
switched it?
Yeah, maybe, but again, I don't think it was bad because it left you with big questions.
Yeah,
and that's kind of sometimes how you would like to end a program. You can't always end it happy, joy.
I think again, I don't know shit about wrestling, but I'm wondering from a flow standpoint. These guys had a really long main event match. I'm wondering after you've had all that up, incitement, enthusiasm. Oh my God, who's coming next of the Royal Rumble? Do you bring them back down into a lull? Because I don't know. I mean, it feels like today this may have been in modern WWE. The title match may have opened the show.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Let me ask you about The Undertaker. How long do you remember? Was he cleared to wrestle without the protective mask? I know he had that fractured orbital bone. You guys did like a Phantom of the Opera mask. And was the idea always to have an opponent pull the mask off in his first match back after he's cleared? I mean, it makes sense. Like, hey, if we got it, we might as well use it, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't remember how long that was. We just had to go until they could say, okay, the orbital is completely healed and he's good to go. Just don't take any more elbows in the punches in that eye.
Last thing I want to ask you about here. Diesel is going to flip off the baby faces here towards the end of the program. Was that discussed ahead of time? Is he the first person ever to do that on WWF programming? I know a year later, Austin's going to be doing it all over the place, but it does feel like, as we talked about with the bloody match on Raw earlier in the month, the whole viewer discretion is advised with with Sonny with her bra out and all that jazz. And now we've got a middle finger. I think a lot of people assume, well, no, that came in with Stone Cold, but no, actually, Rumble 96.
No, that was Diesel, man.
Yeah.
I
Talk to me about that.
I want to say that was Kevin's idea, but we knew about it ahead of time.
Okay.
But that was definitely Kevin's idea.
And Vince was cool with it. How about that?
Yeah. Yep.
Well, that'll do it for Royal Rumble 96. Have we said it all? Have we got it all? Is there anything else to talk about in Royal Rumble 96, Bruce?
I'm out of rehydration drink, so it's going to have to be.
Well, I'm looking forward to next week. We're going to be talking about Royal Rumble 2001. Let us know in the comments below. I can't believe it, Bruce, but you and I have never actually talked about Royal Rumble 01. We've also never talked about Royal Rumble 06. The hits keep on coming with Royal Rumble. Next week is 01. 2 weeks from now, it'll be 06. Let us know your comments below here about 01, and we'll see you next week right here on Something to Wrestle with Bruce Prichard.
Rock on.
Coming up January 30th, join us for a fantastic wrestling experience in Atlanta with adfreeshows.com. Friday night, it's Promo Class with Tony Schiavone and David Crockett, where you can cut a promo in front of the JCP set from Ric Flair's last match, filmed professionally just for you. Saturday morning, it's time for the Power Plant with Sergeant Buddy Lee Parker and a special guest. Your chance to experience what it's like to get inside a real wrestling ring. Saturday afternoon, WWE Hall of Famer JBL will join us as we gather for the Royal Rumble Watch-Along and the $10,000 game event with Efren, where one top guy in attendance will have a chance to win $10,000. And Sunday, it's time for a WCW tour of Atlanta, guided by the one and only Eric Bischoff. Then we'll hit up the DDPY Performance Center. Bang! And finish the night with a ringside seat for a 1FW TV taping. All this and a whole lot more. The first of 3 planned events this year. Make sure to join us as a top guy with an annual membership at adfreeshows.com. You don't want to miss Eric Bischoff's Power Plant Weekend this January 30th.